Dell Comics was the year's biggest new publisher of the new comic book format. In February of 1936, Chicago Tribune Syndicate teamed up with Max Gaines, his assistant Sheldon Mayer, and George Delacorte, and created Popular Comics, featuring a huge amount of well-known characters, among them Dick Tracy, Terry and the Pirates, Gasoline Alley, Skippy, Mud and Jeff, Tailspin Tommy, Little Orphan Annie, and many more. The third and final try at comics, what would be what Delacorte needed to become a successful publisher. In fact, Dell Publishing Company would be one of the most successful comic publishers of all time. The title Popular Comics would last 145 issues, running until 1948. Popular Comics was first published by Dell in February of 1936, an anthology of previously published newspaper strips, but still one of the most important comics of all time, as it launched Dell Comics as a big comic book publisher, and they would eventually become the #1 publisher in the comic businesses. Dell Publishing were successful publishers of pulp magazines and had previously released one of the first comic books in 1929 called The Funnies. The reprints of newspaper comic strips published were mainly supplied by the Chicago Tribune Syndicate. Soon after launching, Dick Tracy made his first comic book appearance and would be a regular feature for quite a few issues. Other characters who appeared in its pages over the years are Don Winslow, the Gumps, and Tarzan. After a time, the comic branched out into using original characters and stories mixed in with the reprints. Original characters included Voice, the Invisible Detective, Professor Supermind and Son, Martin the Marvel Man, and Dr. Hormone. Towards the end of its Popular Comics run, they dropped the use of original material. #1 features the first comic book appearance of Dick Tracy and Don Winslow. Eventually, #6 would feature the first appearance of Scribbly. Many of these, however, in fact, did have their first appearance in the modern comic book format, all in this issue. Popular Comics #1, the first modern comic book from Dell, featuring reprints of some of the most popular comic strips of the day. This would have been an instantly popular book on the newsstands, with the first appearance of Dick Tracy and Gasoline Alley, Tailspin Tommy, Smokey Stuffer, and so many more. Overstreet doesn't list a value beyond the grade of VF 8.0 due to the rarity of a book of this age. The issue is rated by the Photojournal Guide to Comic Books as a 7, which means scarce. And there is a Rockford pedigree copy of this book surviving, graded a 6.5. Cover appearances of #1 include Dick Tracy, the Gumps, Gasoline Alley, Harold Teen, Little Orphan Annie, Tailspin Tommy, Skippy, Terry and the Pirates, and Mud and Jeff. And here we can see an amazing lineup of 36 different popular newspaper strips that were reprinted in this issue. Most of the strips were only half a page or 1 page each, so there was lots of strips in the issue. Chester Gould, born November 20th, 1900, lived until May 11th, 1985. He was an American cartoonist, best known as the creator of the Dick Tracy comic strip, which he wrote and drew from 1931 to 1977, incorporating many colorful and monstrous villains. In 1931, Gould was hired as a cartoonist with the Chicago Tribune and introduced Dick Tracy in the newspaper, the Detroit Mirror, on October 4th, 1931. The original comic was based on a New York detective Gould was interested in. The comic then branched to the fictional character that became so famous. He drew the comic strip for the next 46 years from his home in Woodstock, Illinois. His stories were rarely pre-planned since he preferred to improvise stories as he drew them. Frank Henry Willard, born September 21st, 1893 in Anna, Illinois, lived until January 11th, 1958, dying in Los Angeles, California. He was a cartoonist best known for his comic strip Moon Mullins, which ran from 1923 to 1991.
Heritage Auctions is the world's largest collectibles auctioneer, with 40 collectible categories and nearly 1 million online bidder members. Whether you're an experienced collector hunting for that elusive item or a novice considering the sale of a valuable family heirloom, put the expertise and market strength of Heritage Auctions to work for you. Visit us today at ha.com to find out for yourself why Heritage Auctions is the world's largest collectibles auctioneer.